Welcome to the Design Build podcast. I am one of your hosts, Eli Tomlinson, and I own Grizzly Mountain Construction. And I am here with Brittany Grogan, who is also a host, co-host. I don't really know what we're doing.
An active participant.
An active participant in this podcast. So come along for the train wreck of a show that we are going to try to provide. Hopefully throughout this, you're going to be able to learn something. We're going to try and talk about ultimately the relationship that should be had between a contractor and a designer, as well as what it means to be a part of a project that has both design and the actual construction of the project and how they should mesh or should not mesh. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let Brittany kind of tell a little bit about who she is and why you're here, or why you think you're here.
That's an open-ended thing.
Mm-hmm.
My name's Brittany.
Mm-hmm.
I have a company.
Yeah, you do.
Hailis Design, and kind of come at this industry from the side. Like I entered in unwittingly. Even though this is how I grew up, my dad was a custom home builder. My mom had a flooring store. But they were both really adamant, you don't study this in college. Like,
Really?
mm-mm.
They didn't want you to be a part of construction or be in construction.
I think like most people of the generation before us, the push was just go to college because neither of my parents finished a degree. So it was just, don't do this, babe, go to school. And then because of their industries, they had worked for people that either came out with business degrees or came out with design degrees, which gave them a lot of skepticism of the value of studying that in college, just because I think their experiences were a little less than helpful or ideal or beneficial. So I really showed them and studied history.
It's a good thing you're using your history degree now.
I mean, it's super marketable. But my first job right out of college was with a big development company that was putting in a golf course community.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And I ended up managing the design department there. So
Really?
Yeah, it was just kind of a, guess what, parents, I can't get away from it.
It's going to happen whether you like it or not.
I think that for a designer to be super comfortable in the construction arena is rare. And to be familiar enough with the way a build process works, just kind of, fate was forced in that direction just because it's such a unique thing to have somebody that has that vocabulary that can function with those subs and those people, and yet has like the aesthetic and the design end of it too. So that's how I ended up here.
Did not go to school to get a design degree.
Just a history degree.
Just a history degree that you are currently not using.
I mean,
if you're looking for like old stones, maybe for a house.
Right.
Yeah.
The Antique Roadshow. Super helpful. I did a lot of fine art classes and a lot of art history. So no, I went back to school after it became obvious, like I love doing this and I'm actually really good at it. I went back to school to do drafting.
Okay.
So I did the quick kind of drafting program at a community college, which gave me all the computer-based proficiencies to be able to translate, what had just been napkin sketches into workable, buildable plans.
So what do you think is kind of your favorite thing to do in design right now, or in what you're doing with your company? What facet do you like to be a part of the most, or what do you enjoy the most?
I think it's the difference, I guess, between a decorator and a designer. So the thing that I love is really working with clients to figure out how they use a space and how they need a space to function, which is a lot different than being able to make an existing space look great. So I really love the puzzle solving aspect of taking something that exists or something that is just in someone's mind and being able to to give them something that functions really well and that makes their life easier and is kind of transformative in that way.
Yeah. When you say puzzle solving, you mean like taking like maybe the current footprint of someone's kitchen or someone's living space and trying to figure out how to make that more functional for them?
Yeah. So I've done both new construction and remodels, and both are fun for different reasons. Remodels are especially enjoyable because there's so many limiting factors.
Yeah,
so when
there
you
are.
start with somebody on a new construction project, it's like, here are 5 billion images.
Yeah.
What
Of
do
what
you
it
like?
could look like.
Yes. So there's so many things to choose from and so many directions that we can go that it becomes almost daunting in the number of possibilities. So remodels are fun because they come with their own set of limiting factors, whether that's, the architectural style of the house, the footprint, the budget, any of those things really put parameters around the project so that you can be as creative as possible to figure out what is going to work.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I love is messing with the space, messing with the floor plan,
Yeah.
and doing it in a way that is really specific to what the client needs out of the home.
And what the client needs may be different than the pictures they find on Instagram or Pinterest or...
I would say 100% of the time. So
Okay.
I think I was having this conversation yesterday with a friend, and I was having her look over some of the documents I'm putting together and things that I'm trying to design to streamline client processes.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, my problem would be that I don't know what any of these words mean. Like, could you just create boards that are like, this is what I mean when I say mid-century modern. This is what I mean when I say transitional. And I'm like, no. I don't want you to know those words. Like, I don't want you to tell me what you think you want, because more often than not, it's just a conglomeration of everything that's popular and everything that you've seen right now. So, like 5 years ago, everybody wanted shiplap and subway tile because we were all
they
in
did.
love with
My kitchen.
Chip
the
and
shiplap
Joanna.
and subway tile.
Yeah. I mean, it had its bright, shiny moment.
Yep.
But it really was more of a product of what we were inundated with
Yeah.
as opposed to what was representative of who we are as people, and how we need our space to work. So, and especially, what our space is naturally inclined towards. Like, we don't live in a place where shiplap was ever used on the construction of a house. So it's a little bit, disingenuous to throw it up everywhere. It's in my bedroom. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we have it in our kitchen and we have it in our office. And our office is actually old boards that we took from a shed, from a shed that was built in, like 1920. So it's all like this really nice, tight grain fur. And it looks really pretty. We painted it white, but it still looks pretty. And you can kind of see some of the natural, I guess, graining and stuff that comes through. And then our kitchen is the $1.99 a linear foot stuff that you can buy at Home Depot.
Yeah.
That's primed and, pretty. And I don't know, we got the apron sink to go with it. And I mean, I like it, but we have kids. And so we probably shouldn't have gone with so much white.
There's that.
Because kids are disgusting.
We live in a dusty place, too.
We do live in a dusty place. So I don't know. We at least live in town, so a little less dust.
Tell yourself that, yeah.
Anyway, so I guess I'll go ahead. I don't know if I have any more questions for you. You did a great job, by the way. Good job introing yourself and
Thanks.
telling us some things. So my name's Eli. I own Grizzly Mountain Construction. Hi, Brittany. I'm Eli.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
I got started, I guess, I didn't initially start out home building. I don't know if you know this, or doing any sort of construction. I grew up on a farm. And so a lot of like the manual labor and I guess just work ethic that I would have created just came from doing really crappy tasks around the farm that my grandpa didn't want to do, so he had me do it.
If you know how to fix stuff with baling wire and duct tape,
Yeah,
you
we
can
didn't use.
much.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, we had an almond farm, so it wasn't like a normal like cow farm. We didn't have
Not
animals.
a farm around here.
No, farm around here is a ranch.
Yeah.
Like, it would be a ranch. We grew up on an almond farm. My grandpa, growing up, he lived on a dairy. And he swore off ever having any sort of farm animal ever again. So like growing up, I didn't get to do 4-H or anything like that because it meant having, you know, a cow or a pig or a goat or something like that. So he's like, nope, you can just learn how to farm almonds. That's what you can do for 4-H. So anyway, so he swore off animals, but I grew up kind of working on the farm. So like I'd help him with projects. Like he put an awning on the side of his house and I helped him do that. And, you know, we did some trim stuff, but like mostly it was like working on tractors, working in the field, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't even until I got into college, I didn't really do anything construction wise. It wasn't until after college that I was like, I found that I really liked working with my hands. And even when I wasn't getting paid for it, you know, I enjoyed just doing things that were outside or making things look pretty. So when I was right after college, I got a job at a camp and they needed all of these cabins remodeled. There's like 12 cabins that they wanted remodel with a bunch of shiplap on the inside.
Obviously.
But, you know, it was just something that they wanted done. And so I was like, I'll do it. Like, it wasn't part of my job at the time. I was their adventure course guy. So I ran like the high ropes courses and backpacking and rock climbing and stuff like that. But it was winter and we weren't doing a lot of that. So I was like, let me remodel these cabins. I'll save you money and I'll do it. And so that's kind of where I found just like my enjoyment, just the pure enjoyment that I had from remodeling. Because you are working within some set parameters.
Right.
Like, yes, you can remove walls and you can do things, but you still have a shell that you have to work with. You don't just get to tear it all down and build it new and straight. And
Rarely.
Yeah, rarely. So we remodeled those 12 cabins and really liked it. I got to build bunks, you know, had to use my brain and figure out how to save money, but also make things look nice. It was when I first did tile. I also learned what not to do with tile. I learned about waterproofing and how important it is, especially on a second-story cabin.
Quick on-ramping there, yeah.
we had just finished the upstairs of, so like the cabins, there was 4 cabins up top and then there were 2 cabins down below. And the 4 cabins up top, like they of course had shower pans. So like the shower itself was waterproof, but like the kids for some reason didn't have the curtains inside the showers.
Never do.
And so there was just water pouring from the upstairs down into these lower cabins. Right. And there, of course, we had a group of like middle school or high school girls down there, and they're just all freaking out because the cabin's raining down on them with someone else's shower water.
About to die or get so many diseases.
Anyway, I've learned that waterproofing is really important.
It can be.
So, and really, I think I really liked watching those DIY shows, like before I had a house. It was one of those things where it's like I daydreamed about having my own house, but we were kind of too poor to buy a house. So I just watched other people renovate their houses. And of course, Chip and Joanna were a big part of my TV watching.
Yeah.
And then, you know, what is it? Fix or flip and stuff like that. But that's kind of where I was like, oh man, this looks like a lot of fun. And then, you know, we buy our house and I was like, okay, I get to do this for real.
And then it stopped being fun.
And it stopped being fun. No, it was on a big scale, and I got to put all the things into practice that I had watched for so long. And it just, I don't know, for some reason for me, it just clicked. You know, some people, you hand them a hammer and they just don't know how to swing it. They don't know what to do. Some people just don't know how to use tools, and that's okay. But I think just growing up, working on the farm, getting to see manual labor, getting to do manual labor, work with my grandpa, see how things work, that like when I finally got into my own house and I was like, okay, like this all makes sense. I'm putting it together. And so I practiced on my house before I technically started working for myself and working on other people's houses. And, you know, I got my master's after college and working at that camp that I did the remodel at. And I did architectural sheet metal for that. So I did construction to kind of pay my way through school. You know, it was in Minnesota, so I worked the winter in Minnesota doing architectural sheet metal, which is horrible. But yeah, so I did that, and then of course I've worked for a couple other contractors, just kind of like in between times, because for me it's always just made sense to go back to manual labor. Like my degree is in outdoor leadership. but manual labor is always there. People always need physical work to be done.
You're leading the people outdoors as you're telling
It's
them
true.
what to do.
Don't put a window there. No. Yeah. So I do a little bit of that still, I guess.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, so and then in 2020, I started my own company, and I focused specifically on doing flooring and tile because of the things that like I knew how to do. Like I said, I learned a lot when I worked at that camp doing tile, and I worked for a couple other contractors since then that did some tile, and so I was able to learn how to do it right. And since then, I've learned even more. But I just kind of got started in doing flooring and tile because that's what I felt comfortable with. And then I slowly like moved into it. Like you naturally move from like doing flooring and tile to where they're like, hey, you want to just do our whole bathroom? Yeah. And it's like, well, sure. Yeah, I'll try it. Let's do it. And so I then, then I was just doing bathrooms and flooring and tile. And then I did my first kitchen. I was like, okay, that wasn't horrible. Like besides my own kitchen, I did my first kitchen for someone else that was paying me money to remodel their kitchen, which is a whole different world. Because all of a sudden there's like, you're just holding somebody else's money trying to make their vision come to life. And I was acting as the designer and the contractor, and I am not a designer in any sense of the word. People would ask me, what color tile they should do. I was like, you need to go down to 3rd Street Flooring. You need to talk to the ladies down there that work with tile daily, and they'll tell you what's going to look good because you don't want my opinion.
When my husband is like, I don't know, he'll be like, well, I didn't know you wanted green there. I'll be like, bud, that's not even green. Like, that's not what color that is. And he's like, yes. I'm like, look at what you have on your body. I'm not listening to you.
That's funny.
You're not qualified to tell me. We put those two things together. You just immediately, nope, I'm not.
He's not allowed to criticize. Yeah. However, I think my design sense has gotten a little better because the last 2 bathrooms that I did in my own house, my wife didn't really pick anything. I picked everything from the tile to the fixtures to...
Definitely, like the more cool stuff you see.
Oh, yeah.
The more time goes on, the more cool stuff you see. The more you see, like, even installing mundane materials in a new way, you're like, okay, we could do we can do something cool.
I have this really cool design idea that I have for my master shower right now. Because I'm doing 12 by 24 gray, like some dark gray natural looking tiles. And then I have black hexagon floor tiles, which I really like the black hexagon tiles. I don't know why. I just think they look sexy. But I really...
If a tile can be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it can. Okay. But of course, I'm on Instagram and I see this guy. He's like laying out his hexagon tile and he's kind of doing like a random pattern up this, so like taking it from the floor up the wall and doing like miscellaneous or just like random pieces of hex, little set-ins. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And my wife was like, why don't we just go simple? Since
what she's really saying is, why don't you just get it done?
That's exactly. She's saying that. And she's also saying, we want to list our house. We don't want to be in this house anymore. So anytime you take being creative means that we don't get to sell the house. So anyway,
you can just call it practice.
I know. I'm like that's content, babe. I have to do this for the Instagram.
For the gram.
Anyway, yeah. So the last 3 years, I've had my own remodeling company, and we've just gotten progressively larger and larger jobs as I've gotten a better understanding of how things work. Pieces go together. Like, we just finished up a large like whole home remodel. That if I had gotten this job when I first started, I would have not had any clue what to do. So it's just one of those things where it's like I progressively have like met people that know what they're doing, and I'm able to like tap in different people when I need them, like, to figure out paint or flooring, or not necessarily flooring, but like even like roofing. And it's like, I don't want to roof anything, but I know this guy and he roofs things. So it's like just building up that contact list so that I can then take on these bigger projects and I can continue doing the things that I like doing and, have things that my guys like doing.
Well, and the thing that I've appreciated in working with you, because I see the same thing like in myself. If somebody's doing something, I want to know what they're doing and why and how, and like that curiosity of, okay, but explain why. I understand that my is often, I understand you're telling me no, but explain why.
Why is there a
maybe
no?
we can
Yeah.
workshop this. But
That doesn't work with my wife.
being
When she says no.
curious-
When she says no, it's
that's
just no.
a hard no.
Yeah.
But being curious about that, just all the different facets that go into a project. I feel like it's rare. Like I don't meet a lot of generals that care. They want the people to show up on time, which is just as valuable as the people that do a good job. But understanding all of the components and being curious about what makes this better than this, or this process better than this, or this skill set. It's really, I don't know. I appreciate that in you.
No, well, thank you. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. And now we're starting a podcast because I thought it would be a good idea.
It's always a good idea to put your face on the internet.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. That's what all the cool people are doing now, is putting their face on the internet and starting podcasts. And
Clearly.
we're not going to do any cool dances, though. I refuse to dance for Instagram. Yeah. So I guess let's talk a little bit about, we know who we are, and they know who we are. Whoever our 3 viewers are now know us. So I guess the point of this podcast is to hopefully teach, create, and just have a better understanding of the relationship between designer and builder, as well as, we'll talk about different design trends. We'll talk about different things that go into the process of, quote unquote, building your dream home or designing your dream home, bringing that home to life. But I guess, can you sort of explain what the design build process is, or why we want to try and cultivate, I guess, more so an environment where design build is the thing to do? Or I guess, why do you like the design build process? It's a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
Maybe just answer one of them. Yeah.
From my end, I feel like I'm typically brought into a project when it's too late. So once the decisions are mounting and it's overwhelming and we really don't know, or the things have gone in and this looks terrible with what we have going on over here, then it's like this panic. We need help.
Yeah.
Like we need somebody to come in and untangle this web that we've woven, because now this room looks like this Pinterest page and this room looks like this Pinterest page, and things are falling apart. So the design build model is one that really front loads the process with a lot of intention, I think. So, again, this friend that was helping me with my client processes, she's sitting there and she's like, this is like a counseling session. Like, what are we doing? And it is like, I want to figure out how people live and how people use their space. And a lot of builders don't have that time with the client. And that's not their job. That's just not the focus.
It's hard.
Well, I mean, a builder in my mind is given a set of specifications and plans, and you execute. The designer is the one that's developed those plans. So whether that's an architectural designer or an interior designer, on a design build model, they have done the work to front load that process with, how often do you entertain? How old are your parents? Are they going to move in?
How many kids do you have?
Do you have pets? Do you how do you need this to function? How do you need this to live? What kind of life do you want to have? What kind of life do you have right now? What are the barriers to being able to host a huge Christmas gathering or Thanksgiving or whatever it is? So all of those things help us. The best thing that I can hear at the end of a project is a client that says, like, I had no idea that I could have something like this. I had no idea that this was possible. I don't want somebody that, shows up with a photo and says, can you copy this for me? I mean, I can. The answer is yes. But I would rather take what you're saying, find out what you need, and surprise you and delight you and give you something that you couldn't have imagined. So the design build model, I guess, trying to answer your question succinctly, is one that the guesswork is taken out of the process for the client. That's my final answer.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess I kind of look at it too is yes, having the designer having, I guess, whatever role that it be, whether it be architectural or interior design or something like that, just having that piece put together by someone other than me. And there are contractors out there, there are builders out there that do have an eye for design, but I would say that most of them have an eye for just bringing someone else's designs to life, or have the ability to bring them to life.
Or again, have a really strong kind of portfolio of, here's a really cool thing that we did on the last project.
Exactly.
Maybe this would work for you.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody that's saying, what do you need? And let me figure out how to make that happen for you.
That's exactly what I do. When people are like, well, what can I do here? I was like, I pull up my Instagram and I'm like, well, see, I did this. Do you like this? We can do this here.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's value in knowing what somebody responds to.
Yeah.
As far as images go. But I don't feel that that's design work as much as that's, I like this. Copy, paste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think for me, it's really nice to have worked with you on the couple projects that I've had you help me with, is just having, like, even with the project I'm currently working on, even having those designs that were, you know, we altered some things, like we had to change some things for cabinets and stuff like that, which is fine, but I generally had a plan set in front of me. I was like, okay, I generally know what this is going to look like. I can envision this right now, and I can bring this to life. And it takes a lot of stress off of me knowing that that's already been created, and all I have to do now is, at least in this case, is make sure the product is there, it's in one piece, and then I have to install it. I have plans to show me exactly what it's supposed to look like. I just have to install it to look accordingly.
Yeah.
Which is really nice, and it makes me feel good. It makes me look good, and hopefully at the same time, it also makes you look good, because it's like, you designed that, and you know,
Here
we can
it
kind of
is
both,
in 3D.
Yeah, here's real life what this picture looks like. So yeah, I think that's something that's just been really nice, and I haven't worked with any other designers.
Why would you need to?
I know, why would I need to? But it's having that design process front loaded just takes so much stress off of me as the builder, because then I can just focus on the things that are going to work within, I guess, my skill set, my guy's skill set, and then also know who I need to bring in for the project to make it go smoothly.
Right.
It allows me to, and even just having that design, it allows me to create a timeline that is relatively accurate, because I can look at it as a whole and say, like, okay, these pieces need to happen in this succession, right, or in this way, so that we can then get done with the project, hopefully on this day.
Yeah, and one of my goals as we continue talking about this is to kind of dispel the idea that design services are only for high-end luxury projects. While they certainly are, I think that the reality is going through this with a designer is an investment. I don't want to make any bones about that. But you're able to run the project so much quicker. So it's an upfront investment, but the return is going to be one that's felt throughout the construction process. Like, I think we were on site the other day, and it was like, one of the first things I'll give you is where the bath accessories go, which is counterintuitive if you're working through a project by yourself or with a builder.
Why do I need to know where my towel hooks are?
Right. And it's like, because I don't want those to pull out of the wall, because you know what my kids do with them?
We're going to do pull-ups.
Exactly. So those things where, like, we've been through the process and we're able to guide someone through the process, so that choosing your bath accessories on day 6 of the project isn't crazy. We've already chosen plumbing fixtures. We've already chosen tile. We already know the whole way the room is going to feel. So this is, you know, this doesn't feel like a daunting, weird place to ask you.
Yeah.
where do you want your towel bar?
Yeah. And I mean, I can even speak to the fact that like just the speed at which projects move when you have the design front loaded or have just some work as far as materials and things front loaded, because, you know, the first kitchen I did took me way longer than it should have. And fortunately, even the first bathroom that I did, holy cow. Fortunately, I was the designer and the builder.
Yeah.
On the first bathroom I ever did, and it was for just a lovely lady that goes to our church, and she was full of grace, and she was just super nice, and it took me probably a full month and a half to do this one bathroom. Granted, there was a lot of tile and like,
right,
and it was a full gut, and so there were some things, but like even just having to figure out, order materials, process through what permits I need to pull, like just all of that like took way longer than it ever should have. And so, and then even just like the kitchen that we did recently, like it took me probably, or not recently, but my first kitchen that I did was probably took a full 2 months, which is way longer than it should have. But now scaling or going to this kitchen that I'm working on right now, with the plans and just kind of the design pieces that you have given me, I mean, this kitchen is going to be done in like 4 weeks, 4.5 weeks, which is a lot more reasonable when you're gutting an entire kitchen and living
without a kitchen.
And someone's living without a kitchen. And so it's like, I can just speak to the fact that it just makes my life a lot easier, and being able to process through that beforehand and makes the client a lot happier, you know?
Well, and definitely, I mean, the thing on remodels is it's not if, it's when something goes wrong. So having a fully conceptualized plan at the beginning makes those hiccups really workable. One kitchen that I was on that did not take 4 weeks. It was such a long project. But we had reviewed plans, reviewed structural plans, the house had been built, 25 years before. So we're working on a really old set of plans. It had been remodeled once somewhere in there pretty extensively, like to the tune of a new steel beam somewhere that we didn't know. And we're working on these plans, and we wanted to open the kitchen up. And so the plan had been all the way along. Every structural review was like, yeah, open it up, do it. It's fine. It was not fine when we did demo. So there's a post right where the island is supposed to be, like all good times. So it was definitely like a huge pivot and a huge disappointment for all of us, just because we didn't catch it. But we had this fully established set of plans. And so pivoting felt like pivoting. It didn't feel like a catastrophic start from scratch. We have to
go back to the drawing board, and
now we don't know what we're doing because this is here. You know, it gives you those parameters in which you have to be creative. Because like we already have the tile, the cabinets are already being built. Like we have so much of this that we're not throwing away because we found a post. We just need to pivot and figure out how to make this work. So front loading the design again, I feel like if you're working in a normal fashion on a remodel, especially, there's a lot of contractors that want to open it up and see what those dominoes are going to be, because you're bound to find them. But when there's no process, I think especially when the client is told, so we've got a major issue, the client's tendency is to be like, well, then let's rethink everything. And you're like,
no, we can't do that. We don't have time for that.
No. So it's helpful in so many different aspects to know what you're doing and where you're going.
You kind of mentioned before, I guess just that there is a cost, right? There is a cost to front load the design.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to just be for, you always hear about designers that are, designing some famous person's home, or, they're designing these multi-million-dollar homes in LA or wherever. And yes, there is that, but there is also an accessible way to have design done, or at least to the point where the design makes up for it. The cost that a designer would be can traditionally make up for itself in the fact that you have someone there that is on your side, that is, helping you find products that is going to be functional for your space, and hopefully kind of front load any objections or anything that would or could happen in the process. Do you find that true? Or I guess, how do you explain that to customers when people are like, oh my gosh, this design is going to be, whatever it is, $10,000 or $150 an hour, or whatever it is, because people inevitably go, $150 an hour if I have her for 40 hours. Holy,
Yep.
So just like, how do you kind of process, or I guess talk through that with a client to help find, because I don't have to do that as much, I guess is why I'm asking.
Right.
Because people have already brought me in because they have a problem and I'm there to fix it, or they have something and they know it's going to cost money. But then when you go like, hey, I have this designer. And I
think that I think there's several factors there. I think it's the idea that it's inaccessible. I think that we reserve it for a luxury, ultra high-end situation. I think that's, just kind of contributes to the overall, I don't want to pay for this reaction. The way that we talk about it is in terms of the overall budget of the project. So really, we're asking for a percentage of the whole. We're not presenting you with a bill, like an overage, an unexpected thing. The paybacks are definitely tangible and intangible both. So there are discounts, trade discounts. There are access to materials that only designers have. So like I have access to materials that you cannot buy.
That I can't as a contractor.
The fact that you're a contractor. So you will be buying those at retail and you will be charging your margin on those to the client. So there's a material access and availability that's a factor. And then I forgot where I was going. There's other good stuff. No.
There's so many good things. Just do it.
So many things.
No.
So there's material access. There's and then, oh my gosh.
Tangible and intangible. We were talking about the tangible and intangible.
Yeah.
Talked about access to materials that you have that I don't have.
So I would say the biggest difference between what a designer brings to a project and even a really builder with great taste is like...
Which, of course, is me.
That's why I did this with my hands. So there's so much time that we spend learning and training and with vendors and getting product knowledge and getting specific product knowledge.
Yeah.
So I would hope that I'm able to speak to the differing tile construction or tile materials on a level that you're not, because this is not your realm. Why do you need to know? So we're avoiding a lot of costly mistakes because the things that we specify from the get-go are appropriate for our climate, our realities, are the room, the intended purpose, the function, the people that live in, all of those things. We're avoiding costly mistakes like that. So those are another one of those like tangible benefits to working with somebody that really knows the industry. Having a designer as kind of a middle person or a buffer seems like an additional person, with a markup or a margin. But I don't know if you know this, but the industry offers a lot of kickbacks and a lot of promotions. So for a retailer, when you walk into
Home
an
Depot
appliance store or whatever, they're usually having a spiff that month on this vendor is giving kickbacks if we reach this sales, whatever.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm saying everybody's a liar, but everybody's motivated by their own incentives and pocketbooks. So having a designer that has product knowledge and that can kind of cut that, like, that's great that that's on sale this month. But we're going this way.
Yeah.
Like this
it
is
may be
what
on sale,
is best
but it's not
for
actually.
this project.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and that's true of like flooring, all of the materials basically are subject to some sort of, at some point in the calendar year, some sort of incentivized rebate for the people selling it. So there's those things where you're getting a real unbiased, like, this is what's just going to work best for you. This is the direction that we need to go in.
Yeah.
The intangible things would be the project timeline, for sure. I think that most of my clients are surprised by kind of the lack of emergencies that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you have a designer on the project, it's kind of that funnel down to the client where it's the builder, subcontractors, designer, and then the client.
Yeah.
So the designer really is standing that gap. And like, say you come up with, I don't know, this exhaust vent or plumbing vent is coming up in the wall right where we were supposed to be doing something, and there's absolutely no way we can move it. And we need to work up several alternatives. So we're going to have that conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to come up with our best recommendation. One that I know is keeping the intention of the clients at the center and at the forefront, and that's going to work pragmatically with how things need to go together and where nails need to go.
Yeah.
And then we're going to present that to the client as, here's what happened, here's the solution, here's the cost, here's a backup plan if you don't like this. But we've taken options A through Z down to give you one best recommendation. And then, here's the ramifications for you. So a lot of times those are the things that are really, really daunting for a client during the process, is to like, I don't know what we should do.
Well, yeah. And I think even like you're saying, just taking away, like a lot of times, not saying they don't need to know, but it's like, they don't need to know that this was an issue right away.
Right.
It's saying like, okay, this is an issue. You and I are talking about it. Let's figure this out real quick. Okay, we have an idea. Now we can go to the client and say, hey, we just want to let you know this happened. But don't worry, we have option A and option B for you. Which one would you like to go forward with? Option A may be a little better for, the overall design that you wanted for the home. Option B may be a little cheaper, but, or whatever it is. And we're able to then go to the client with not just a problem, but also have the problem and the solution right there with them. So
Well, and even the number of times that like tile installers have called and like, do you want the tile this way or do you want it this way? Like all of those things are things that would trickle down to the client because there's really not a better or worse. There's like you're saying, these are issues that the client really doesn't need to weigh in on, but there are things that need answers.
Yeah.
So those are time, you know, and for most of my clients, they're like, I don't want to hear about it. I just want you to take like, these are the pictures you showed me. This is the idea that I agreed to.
Yep.
I would like to show up when it's done and be happy with the result. And so those are like the daily management tasks that a designer is bringing to the project because they are questions that need to be answered. And I guarantee you don't want the guys in the field just making those decisions.
No, I like both. I like my guys that I have in the field. But yeah, sometimes just having that guidance. I mean, they're not designers either, right? My guys are not designers and they know that. And I know that. And so having them tell me if, having them make the decision on the tile, it's like, well, no, actually it's supposed to be mitered. Like we're going to do a 45. We're going to miter the tile. And, they stack it. It's like, I don't want them to make that decision. Because if it were me, if I was that guy, I would want to stack it on top because that's way easier than doing a 45. Holy cow. That miter takes forever, And so it's just things like that. It's like if they don't have to decide, they just know, okay, this whole window inside the shower area, that's going to be mitered. It's going to take all day to do that, and just being able to kind of prep them for that beforehand. But anyway. Yeah, and I was going to say, I think another kind of intangible, which I think you're touching on, but it's just the lack of stress that is going to be put onto the client because you're there and we're able to kind of solve through some projects or solve through some problems before they even make it back to the client. So there's just that alleviation of stress.
Right. And a lot of times there are things that we just take care of. I mean, like, it's just, I mean, it's an issue, it's a question, it's a solve, but this impacts the bottom line zero. Nobody needs to know that this was a mini crisis. Yeah.
And it's not even in the sense that like it's a crisis that, I guess mini crisis is probably the best way to say it.
Well,
major crisis can, we'll bring the client in on.
For the surgeons and the doctors. There's no design emergencies.
That's true. There's only, okay. That makes sense. Mini crisis. Anyway.
Yeah, so I don't think that it's fair to say that my time or my invoice on a project would be completely made up for by the discounts I'm able to secure.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's true. Generally, that's true on a project of a certain scale.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that bell curve of, diminishing returns. Like, I certainly can't help you if you want me to source furniture for your living room.
On a $20,000 kitchen, 10,000 of that's, or, it's just, it's just diminishing.
The number of hours that it's going to take me to design that, it's not, depending on your budget, it might not be worth it to hire me. And those are things that, like, we're really, really upfront about.
Yeah.
I had this great, cute little lady call me and she wants to do her living room and she has $10,000 to do her living room. And that's fantastic. You should be able to find some amazing things. Let me send you down to this furniture store that I work with and the salespeople can help you with that because I don't want you to spend 3 of that on me. If you have a limited budget, I want you to get what's best for your space.
Yeah.
And that doesn't involve me.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, we have project minimums for that reason.
Yeah.
Because there are projects that don't make sense to hire somebody to weigh on. There's a lot of great resources available now, thanks COVID, for, like Zoom consultations and online, like quick answers type things that I think are fantastic. And I think that takes a really practiced skill set that I don't feel super confident in.
Yeah.
Because I like the getting to know my client. I like figuring out what's best, not just...
It's a little more of an intimate relationship. You know them a little bit more.
I would say, again, that's maybe a difference between like a designer and a decorator. Like, I don't want to help you pick paint colors because that's just a 10-minute conversation. I want to work on the whole project, and try to help you figure out things that change the way you live and use your space every day, as opposed to a pretty color or a pretty pillow or a nice rug. Like, those things affect your dopamine, but not, you know.
No, that makes sense. Well, I feel like we talked about a lot. I feel like you talked about a lot. You did a great job. I threw in my 2 cents where I thought I had 2 cents.
You got a pocket full of change.
I got a pocket full of sunshine. Sorry. Anyway, so this is kind of what this is going to look like a little bit. We're going to talk about this process. We're going to talk about some design trends, hopefully kind of just throughout it, or just talk about generally what we think is the best design ideas for some different spaces. I'm
excited to take this show on the road, to do some site visits.
Yeah, that's true.
To do some project walkthroughs. I think that getting to see the nitty-gritty of the types of issues that we look at and talk about and address really, really regularly will be helpful.
Yeah. So, and I think you guys can, all of our followers, sorry, I just think it's funny saying that right now because
it's like me talking about my phone.
Yeah. But you guys can follow. You have an Instagram. You're going to start posting on your Instagram.
And dust that thing off.
Yeah, you got to start posting on your Instagram. Do you remember what your handle is?
Yeah, it's Hailis Design.
Oh.
Here's pro tip for entrepreneurial spirits out there. You make up a word for your business name. Nobody else has it.
I was going to ask you if there was any significance to Hailis or if it was just...
Okay, it is so sentimental and significant because when I was pregnant with our first kid, I had a dream that it was a little blonde-haired girl, big curls, and her name was Hailis.
Oh.
So I don't dream vividly. I rarely dream vividly, I guess. So I woke up and woke Chad up and was like, the baby, we're going to name her Hailis.
And then it was
breaking
a boy.
news. It was a boy. And also I woke him up to tell him this. And he's like, we are never naming a human that.
I can see that. I can honestly see Chad saying that.
Yeah. He's a real dream killer. So, just kept that little nugget in the back of my head until I started my business when my kids were kind of pre-tween age. And I was just bored out of my mind. We'd been homeschooling them for so long. And Joe asked me to pick out a paint color, now that I've talked about how much I hate that, for the brewery. And so I showed up and like, or I could basically move in down here and do everything.
That's funny.
I was just like, get me out of this house. So I started my business for that project specifically.
Really?
And I was like, dusted off that little adorable name that I still, I mean, obviously once I get really famous from this, everybody will know the word, but it literally means nothing.
Okay.
I mean, I was like, maybe it means something in Hawaiian. No.
Would you put it into a name generator? Or a meaning?
No,
name
I
meaning?
did ask my robot to tell me what it means because Google was coming up blank. And this is good. It's a stretch, but I like it. So it's spelled Hailis. So hail, like welcome, and lis, or like the root Latin word for light, would be loose. But the robot ChatGPT told me it was like, welcome the light or something. And I was like, that's kind of
I'll take that.
designy. I mean, it makes more sense than like I had a fever dream with bad pizza.
I was supposed to name my firstborn daughter. No.
I mean, the lastborn daughter was not named that either. So
anyway, yeah. Okay. So Hailis Design on Instagram. You can find me Instagram, Grizzly Mountain Construction.
Way easier to spell.
Way
remember.
Easier. And there's a mountain in Prineville called Grizzly Mountain. That's where the name came from.
Almost as creative.
Super original.
As I had this dream.
Well, I just know the mountain's a big deal in Crook County. I mean, as far as like people that live here, they're like, oh, there's Grizzly Mountain. I was like, okay, well, that's the name of my company. That way people can say, hey, there's Grizzly Mountain.
It's an impressive hill.
Yeah. It's a hill with a cell tower on it. Anyway. All right. Well, thanks, guys, for hanging out with us.
Yes.
And hopefully we'll see you next time. All right. That's it. We're calling it.